Welcome back to Melissa Coppel Chocolate and Confectionery School. In today's class, I'm actually going to be teaching you how to make as well as how to maintain creamy cocoa butter, also known as silk. The very first thing that I would like to do is to explain to you what it actually is and what it actually means to have creamy cocoa butter. So let's start with the explanation. So before we even start, let's say something that it's very important to leave it clear. And it's that when you buy cocoa butter, even if it's in a solid form, like cubes like this, or it's like a block that you chop, if it's coins like this, or if it's, this is what it's called Mycryo, which is powder form of creamy cocoa butter, all these cocoa butters already come with a stable form of crystal, the beta 5 or form 5. So they are in temper. Once you take this cocoa butter, it doesn't matter if this, or this, if you take it to the microwave and you melt it and you surpass 35 degrees Celsius, is when you get this. And this is actually, you could say that it's the same thing because it's still cocoa butter. But this one, because you surpass the 35 degrees Celsius, let's say limit, already all the crystals disappear. So what it is creamy cocoa butter, it belongs to this group, because it still has the stable form, the form 5 or beta 5. So that means you can seed using just this, but it's not already liquid and it's not powder. It's in a state that it's an in-between state. So the advantage, I can show you the texture. The advantage of using this is that it's going to incorporate much easier in wherever you want to precrystallize or temper. You want to precrystallize a ganache. You want to precrystallize a fat-based filling like a janduja or a duja. You want to precrystallize chocolate. This is a beautiful texture. A lot of people, and I'm sure you've heard or you've seen, or maybe you still do it, use Mycryo. And there's nothing wrong with using Mycryo. The problem with Mycryo is that it almost like gets in suspension, like it's never really fully incorporated. So now that I explained what it actually means, creamy cocoa butter, I'm going to show you how to make it. So what do we need to make and maintain? Very important to really highlight that part. Maintain creamy cocoa butter. Because what happens? You make creamy cocoa butter, but if you don't maintain it, it's going to become rock solid. So a lot of people first get confused on the first part on how to make it. So how to make it is going to be very easy. We're going to be using, you can use coins. I'm going to be using Mycryo, which is the powder form of cocoa butter. And I find it much easier to make the creamy cocoa butter using Mycryo. Mycryo is more expensive. So again, if you want to save a little bit of money, you can simply use coins of cocoa butter. Once you melt it, like we're going to do it right now, and I'm going to show you in the microwave, you need a warmer. You need a place where your cocoa butter is going to maintain over time in a creamy form. So let's start. First, I'm going to add some Mycryo to the bowl of this warmer. Again, if you want to add coins, or if you have a block of cocoa butter that you want to chop up, that works too. And now I'm going to take this powder to the microwave, being very careful not to melt it all the way, okay? So I'm going to give 30 seconds at a time, and with a spatula or a whisk, I'm going to start stirring until I have the consistency I'm looking for. So as you can see, nothing happens. So I'm going to keep doing this until I get the consistency I'm looking for. So after 30 more seconds, I can see the center starts to melt. It's just a little bit. I know I'm not ready, but I'm just starting to create this beautiful creamy texture. I'm gonna give it another 30 seconds, and after maybe half of this is already melted, what I'll do is I'll go maybe not 30 seconds, but 15 seconds at a time. You can actually leave the spatula inside. So after 30 more seconds, you can see now half of the cocoa butter, it's melted, but the rest is not. So we're starting to get the consistency that we are looking for. Always remember, and you might be wondering why I'm not even taking temperature. There's really no need to take temperature. If you have the consistency of butter, like you're putting butter pomade on top of a piece of bread, that's the consistency we're looking for. Right now, it's creamy, but it's still a little grainy. I'm not a fan. I prefer it to be slightly creamier. That being said, we're going to keep it in a warmer. So I could keep it like this and then heat it slightly with the warmer, but I would like to actually, because I'm doing this live and I want you to see it, I'm going to keep it at the consistency that I'm looking for, which is closer to the one I showed you a second ago. So now, 10, 15 seconds at the most in the microwave. So let's see. It's looking a lot creamier. I still think it needs maybe another 10 seconds because I can see still it's a little grainy. So now that I can sense it's ready, I actually place it on the warmer. And for me, this is looking much better. It's a lot softer. I could give it 10 more seconds, but I think it's good enough. And this is the consistency, so you don't really need a thermometer to make creamy cocoa butter. This is what. And again, if you don't have a warmer like this, you could make this creamy cocoa butter in a bowl, use it, but the problem is how to maintain it, because you might use it to pre-crystallize 10 kilos of chocolate, but after the leftover of this is just useless. You can actually let it crystallize completely and then grate it, or you can chop it up and use it next time. But the warmer is the trick to maintain it in a creamy state. And this cocoa butter, creamy cocoa butter, will be available for you at any time. Anytime you need to pre-crystallize a ganache, a fat-based filling, or chocolate, this creamy cocoa butter will be available for you to do the seeding method. If you are really not understanding or following along with me about how you can pre-crystallize using creamy cocoa butter, please follow our class on pre-crystallization. But it is a very easy way, of really tempering in my preferred method. Obviously, my first one is using a tempering machine, but if you don't have a tempering machine, seeding your chocolate or your products with creamy cocoa butter for me is the absolute best method. It's very clean, it's very practical, it's very easy. So once again, you make it in a bowl using the microwave, but you maintain it using a warmer. And the very last thing I want to say before we finish the class is this is not a digital type of warmer, but I like it because it's really very small. It's like the smallest in the market. So because this is not digital, I cannot set this to 33.5, which is the ideal temperature at which you should keep this cocoa butter. But you have to it's trial and error. So every time I travel around the world teaching classes and they don't have tempering machines, I always, the very first thing I do when I arrive to the school is ask for a small warmer. I add my Mycryo, I create my creamy cocoa butter, and I start monitoring very carefully that little knob. So between 30 to 35, you try to dial that in the best you can. And then if the next day, for example, I show up and my cocoa butter is completely melted, I know I need to drop it. If I show up the next day and my cocoa butter is completely solid, I know I need to raise it a little bit. It's not too practical because it's not digital once again, but it's just, it takes you 1-2 days to figure that exact, temperature that it's going to take for that specific brand of warmer, for that specific amount of cocoa butter that you have inside. And then at that point, I would just put a tape or something so no one touches it, no one moves it, and then you can have creamy cocoa butter the whole time available for you. So I really hope that you enjoyed this class. I hope that I clarify some doubts, that I'll help you with maybe an easy way to actually have available creamy cocoa butter at all times for you, or silk. I know a lot of people call it silk. I call it creamy cocoa butter. Thank you for trusting me, for trusting the school. And I cannot wait to welcome you back at the Melissa Coppel Chocolate and Confectionery School.